Hello and welcome to this really special edition of the Big Fight, and it's special because we're doing it in Goa and because what we're going to be seeing over the next 45 minutes or 1 hour is a real exercise in transparency. Today we're going to be taking a look in some detail at a very crucial aspect of Make in India, and especially what India can do to take its defense sector forward, including from the point of view of seeing if we can actually shift a lot of our defense procurement right here to the country. And I'd like to first start off by welcoming the Defense Minister, Mr. Manohar Parrikar. So it's a real pleasure to have you with us, and I have to say, as an exercise in transparency, you do have a reputation of being one of the most transparent ministers, and to be able to sit and have a discussion like this on a stage with all the people who are potentially wanting to work in the area of defense in India is really great. So thank you so much, sir, for agreeing to do this. And I did say we have everyone on the stage who perhaps might have a stake in this one way or the other. So Phil Shaw, the head of Lockheed Martin India, thank you for being with us. Prakash Shukla, who's the chairman of Mahindra Defense and Mahindra Aerospace. We have David Perry, who's the president of Northrop Grumman International Trading. Thank you so much for being with us. Jayant Patel of Larsen and Toubro. We have Colonel Rajinder Bhatia, who's the president and CEO of Bharat Forge Defense and Aerospace. And Professor Amol Gokhale from IIT Bombay, who's going to be giving us some overall expertise. So it's a very ambitious idea that India, which obviously is one of the largest spenders in the field of defense in the world, but imports everything, and we used to import it entirely from, imports a lot of it, not everything. Can we really become a defense manufacturing hub, or is that what you have in mind?
This being a specialized technologies and lot of development and lot of procedural bottlenecks, being a sensitive technologies, may take some time to really achieve the real target. But I think we have made the beginning, and we intend to do it with a reasonable time frame. The acquisition priorities is Make in India today. So you will find Acquisition Council, DAC, Defense Acquisition Council, giving approvals for mostly Make in India or Buy and Make India.
So to the extent, sir, that you are going to face an issue between the Air Force and the Navy and the Army would want the very best equipment and the most advanced technology, and that's what they need for the defense of the country. How are you going to layer that with the imperative to try and make as much of it as possible in India? Is there going to be a clash sometimes between the two objectives?
I don't think. For example, a lot of people predicted that LCA project is absolute, will not take off because Air Force was not very supportive of it. But I found the real reason is no one is sitting in between the Air Force, HAL and ADA to sort out the issues they have. They obviously have some concerns. Moment this exercise was done 2-3 times with some modification, you now know that they have already agreed to buy 100 of modified LCAs, and the process of ordering them will continue. So Make in India has an aspect, but simultaneously I have told HAL to take assistance if required for part of development through various international consultants if they want. So one way there is an immediate need for which we are going for a high technology item. It's like hunger. I have empty stomach in the afternoon, so I have to eat in the afternoon. I can't keep it for tomorrow based on my planning. But I need to have food tomorrow, day after tomorrow, 1 year after. So how do I plan myself?
Can we get that acceptable quality in India, I think is the point I'm trying to get to.
See, one thing you have to realize, there is a saying that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's also true for developing or supplying arms to if there is a monopoly results into poor quality, and absolute monopoly results into absolute poor quality. Private sector can be also a part to it, and let there be competition. Of course, sometimes the private sector expects a very fast overnight change in attitudes. That may not happen with that speed, but the process of getting private sector into the defense has begun, and I don't see even areas of single vendor situation where with proper auditing, why can't we involve private sector into the defense?
Lockheed Martin obviously has pitched in the past also to sell various, the F-16 and other products to India. Is Make in India a real possibility for you?
Well, we certainly think so, and I agree with what the Minister said. To some extent, we've had some experience of making India here ourselves already in the private sector. We established a capability in Hyderabad to provide a very large aerostructure components for our C-130J platform, not just for India, but for the global market. So they're all made in Hyderabad, shipped to America, and put into the production line to be sold anywhere in the world. And that's been a real success. The quality of components and so on that we're getting out of there is great. So I think we could do a lot more.
So for companies like Mahindra also, is the fact it's been opened up to the private sector, is that big for you? And does this become something which is a major potential area of growth?
There are 7 or 8 countries which have the defense industry. Who are they? The winners of the Second World War, or you can put it other way, 5 permanent members of Security Council. The US, Russia, China, UK and France. And then who are the others? The losers of the Second World War, Germany and Italy. Subsequently, the eyes have developed. So India, Israel, and there are 1 or 2 other eyes who have tried to develop. What it requires to make in India? There are only 3 requirements. First and foremost, there should be requirement. Second, is there technological manpower? Yes. And that brings us to the third factor. Do you have Indian corporate entities who can play the role of platform builders in due course, with 3 elements being suppliers to the platform builders? The platform builder is one, design capability is second, then there are components and part suppliers, and lastly, not the least, material.
So you're saying there are companies which can do a lot of this?
Yes.
Should that be the case?
So we meet all 3.
Right. In defense, India could become a defense hub, not just for our own use. They have the economies of scale, you have the companies, and this could actually become a driving force for the economy itself.
Absolutely, because defense, you have much more control. For civil component, I have multiple agencies manufacturing. If I go for a defense platform, you may not have adequate number, that is number 1. For example, if I want to build submarines, I can't order 200 submarines. And number 2, there might be not enough capabilities across globe. That is an advantage as well as disadvantage.
Right.
It can be converted into an advantage provided you go with a focused and transparent. And I'm mentioning here, single vendor does not mean non-transparent.
Before I come to you, just wanted to get in David Perry out here. Of course, one of the issues with what has just been discussed is if, for example, you're building the state-of-the-art aircraft carriers, as you do, the Gerald Ford and sort of range, which now you're building for the United States, or the B-2 stealth bomber, which again you're building, is that the sort of stuff that is so much money is going into R&D, into development, that it's difficult to make that in another country like India? Or can there be parts of that which can be done here?
I think there's the vast majority of what would be required to deliver a system like that is it's possible to create the conditions where that could be done here in India. The first is talent. You have to have access to the talent that could serve these needs. And you can look around this crowd and the greater population of highly trained professionals here in India, and it's more than sufficient to deliver on that. Secondly, you have to have the industrial capacity and capability in country to marry up with that talent. You have that already. What we don't have, and I hope this isn't offensive, and I think the Minister was great at pointing it out earlier today, the business conditions and the velocity at which decisions can be made to keep pace with technology, to bring all 3 together, is what we have to work on. Because when we figure that out and we develop the velocity for decision making, and we can bring capital to this market, and companies like Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman and Boeing and everyone else can join together to create an industrial capability here, not just for India, but for the entire globe, that's how you make it in India.
Velocity of decision making. Mr. Parrikar, would you agree with him that that's been, in defense, a really serious issue? And for various reasons, we've not been wanting to go and bid for new systems
It's
because
not
of
always velocity which matters. It is directional velocity which matters. I see in the Rafale deal or MMRCA, multi-role medium aircraft, aircraft. I saw it was lot of velocity, but it was rotating velocity. The file was going back and forth and back and forth. So it's a directional velocity. What you want, how you want, is what is important. Whether your partner in getting that is X, those who are sitting here or they are not sitting here, is a part of transparency. The decision does not mean there is a question mark on the decision. Decision can be transparent with logic. Even if someone does not agree with you, you can logically work out why I am taking a different decision. If I have to, someone told me in the department that how can you write something, though I don't do it on every case, how can you write something which is not written? I said, I know I have been chief minister and most of the file comes and the decisions are made by the clerk who sits in the department. He writes something, sometimes negative, sometimes positive. And that gets endorsed at every stage. Hardly anyone goes into it. I remember when I was chief minister, one of my friend came with a 3-page proposal for a very good project. Right. So I just wrote on it and sent it to concerned secretary, and Pat within 8 days I got a reply saying that we can't accept it. I asked him, why you can't accept such a good proposal? He said it is only 3 pages. So I called my friend, told him you put up 200 pages document and last conclusion you put these 3 pages. In 3 weeks the report came positive because no one had gone through the full
first
report.
300. People also don't want to take decisions because if you buy the Rafale, then they are saying, why didn't you buy the F-16? Boeing is saying, why didn't you buy the F-18? Sweden is saying, why didn't you buy the Griffin? Somebody is saying, why didn't you buy the Eurofighter? And the same is replicated everywhere. And then you have TV channels where people are waving papers and saying, why did you do X and why did you not do Y? Is that, let's face it, that is the big issue, isn't it? Or has been one of the big issues.
It is an issue, but I don't think that can be a, if you are transparent. For example, as a politician, I am ready to put myself on any platform, anytime, on the matter of probity and character, integrity. So if my decision is based with a very clean background, I don't think people question them much. I took a decision recently. I got 38 letters without name, unsigned, on the decision I took on Apache and Chinook. I read through everything, apply my mind, analyze what were positive and realize that we have to take decision quickly in the interest of forces, because we were down to 1 heavy lift helicopter and we were down to 15 fighter helicopters. In another 5 years, I may be 0 and maybe 10. So do you get, because just because we cleared the project now, doesn't mean I get it tomorrow. It will take 3 years to 4 years to get those platforms. So if I go through the cycle again, the cost increases, don't gain anything more than same products probably with a higher cost, because there are only 1 or 2 competitors. I went to the merit, I went to the process. I was convinced that it is within the limitation, whatever some minor issues had to be explained, were explained.
Let me just get Mr. Patil, Colonel Bhatia and Professor Amol into this also. Mr. Patil, the point of decision making, which has been an issue in the past, is that one of the reasons, has that frustrated companies like Larsen & Toubro or Bharat Forge for that matter, for a fairly prolonged period of time? When will private sector companies be allowed to get inside? When will decisions be taken?
Decision delays absolutely have been frustrating, and let me not mince any words on it. But where we expect a decision logically can be made, let's say 6 months' time, we have seen decisions don't get made for years. When you have the 3 C's chasing you all the time, will you and can you make a decision? There's a CAG, there's a
CAG, CBI.
So with those kind of things, one actually keeps hearing this in the layers of the government, that if I make a decision and if my pension is going to be stopped because of that, where do I go?
The key point there is what is the manufacturing ecosystem which is required to take it to the next level. There are two parts to that system, and I'll give you specific examples. First part is on research and development, which means technology bandwagon, innovation and the disruptive technologies. And on the manufacturing side, you will look at capability, capacity and competence. You would find there is hardly any startups in defense. There is hardly any innovation which is going on. Wherever somebody has set up an innovation platform, and Raksha Mantri would probably endorse that, it is so difficult to push through that platform because the payments, there is a problem, there is an issue with innovation being done, and there is a trust deficit. So I think we need to move towards creating this manufacturing ecosystem, and which has to be at all levels, which is the key to this success.
Right. Of course, startups in the area of defense are slightly more problematic. I mean, you could set up a small e-commerce or a website somewhere, but for a person out of college to say, I'm going to make an aircraft carrier, it's a bit more difficult. You know,
but there are many elements.
But there are individual areas, absolutely.
And the technology comes from those innovation platforms.
Right. Professor Gokhale, before I come back to the Minister, your take on what we need to do differently now?
100% indigenization in manufacturing should not be the goal. It should be the sovereign control on the intellectual property, the innovation and the technologies. If that is the goal, where you manufacture is not an important thing. And so the question is how the innovation potential of the country and the intellectual property can be tapped in the overall Make in India story. And the apprehension that the R&D community has is that once technologies are brought in from outside, they become sort of redundant. And there are a lot of people who are nearly there but not quite there, and they would like the government to sort of handhold them and take them to the logical end in terms of deliveries of products. And they are worried that the Make in India will actually make them redundant.
See, the point which is mentioning about Make in India becoming issue, let me just give you a little picture on the top. We talked about GDP growth, and Raksha Mantri did mention about that. If India's GDP today is about 1.9 trillion or close to 2 trillion, we are hoping that in next 7 to 10 years it will touch 6 trillion, and we are expecting 25% coming out of manufacturing. If 25% comes out of manufacturing today is about $350 billion, it needs to go to 1.4 or 1.5 trillion dollars, 4 to 5 times increase. Where does it come from? It only comes from manufacturing, and manufacturing is the only way you can take, and defense has to be there.
Let me just come back to you on some of the themes that were spoken about. And I'm sure you're working very hard in trying to change this mindset of what was just said. Ki, let's not take decisions. Let's try and push the file away. Don't acquire any systems. And that's one of the reasons why I think India is in a crisis, which you were talking about, that we've actually not gone out there and purchased systems in a range of areas because of these issues.
Let me first go through 3 C's, CVC, CAG and CBI. As a Chief Minister, one who was dismissed because of political reason, I have faced all these 3. I faced CBI inquiry on my decision to complete and execute a project called as INOX now. It's an old Goa Medical College. You have seen that project where IFI takes place. We did it in 6 months. 6 months including period required to remove the old structure, getting the people who are occupying that, of course government departments, out of that place. And it's not easy to get a government department out. 46 departments were stationed in. We got them out in time, in 8 days. We made alternate arrangement for them. We removed the structure. It was constructed during Portuguese time, so the concrete was of excellent quality. It took us almost blasting to remove it. Put up a new structure, all done in 6 months, an international class of screens for film festival. This full issue was referred by the next government to CBI twice. I went through that pain of getting my headline published that Parrikar to be charge sheeted in next 6 months. He is a part of shame of hall. I spoke to that editor who published that and told him that when CBI says that there is nothing, are you going to publish reverse way? You are not. You are defaming me just because something is referred to CBI. I always said I am ready to face any probe. Finally, CBI came with a clear cut that there is nothing in this wrong done. Now that did not stop me from taking up this project. This is not only one indoor. There are 4 stadiums like this.